Well, I'm Tanis Cornell, and I am the owner and principal of TJC Consulting. And in that role, I do a couple of different things. I work with as a licensee for EWF International, which is kind of my core business in putting together peer advisory boards for women business owners and entrepreneurs and executives. And then I also have a consulting company as a certified practitioner for Lumina Learning, which is a training and development company that has a series of assessments that we use to help teams develop better communication skills, better teamwork, apply these skills to leadership, etc. And so I spent 30 years in corporate America before starting my own business a couple of years ago, but I am married, been married for 27 years. I have a son who's 25 and I have 2 stepchildren, and great family that enjoy him, and he has a great wife and they live in Austin, so we get to see them from time to time. Still waiting on those grandchildren, but one of these days hopefully. EWF, the initials stand for Executive Women's Forums. And the company was founded 16 years ago, really to work specifically with women business owners to help them grow their businesses and learn from each other. As a business owner, it can be lonely at the top. It's, who do you talk to? Who holds you accountable? You can talk to your CPA or you can talk to your attorney, but to be able to have a group of peers who are also business owners who have been through many of the things that you're going through and seek their expertise, their wisdom, their counsel around issues and opportunities that you're facing in your business can be extremely valuable. And the way those work even better is if there's a professionally facilitated methodology at work to really help you get to the heart of an issue. And that's really what we provide. And the company was started because at that time, 16 years ago, a lot of the peer advisory companies that were out there had revenue requirements to join that just a lot of women-owned businesses were not at that level yet. Many women-owned businesses were professional services firms, and to get to that $5 million mark, which was the mark at that time, it's usually around $1 million that you see these days, that was really difficult, and some of these women had really thriving businesses and were looking to get to that next level. So we didn't want to limit the membership, and we wanted to provide that outlet for women entrepreneurs who were really looking to grow their business. And as the company has grown, and we've had hundreds of women go through our forums, some from small companies, some from quite large companies, everything to the Fortune 500. And so now we kind of broadly have a place for that entire spectrum of women. And not that we don't think male-female groups are great, but there's a different dynamic that takes place when it's all women. What I have observed in the groups that I lead is that women will be open in a group of primarily men, and they will address issues. The way they address those issues in a group of entirely women is oftentimes different, often comes from a more authentic place. They feel more free and authentic to be themselves and really share at a deeper level often than you will see otherwise. So we've seen great periods of growth. And these groups enable the women to challenge each other to achieve their goals and hold them accountable to achieving those goals. So it's been a great experience for me and something that's been extremely rewarding. A couple of themes that I see from time to time is that, and statistically, women-led businesses are 25% the size of male-led businesses. And I think there's a number of reasons for this. I think for a lot of women, they start lifestyle businesses. They remain solo entrepreneurs. They really aren't in it to necessarily build a business. They're looking for a personal income. They do it for flexibility. They're needing to raise a family. So I think that impacts some of those statistics. But the other statistic is that women use their own money to finance their business much more than male-led businesses. Men who lead businesses tend to use external money, venture capital. Women use less of that. They're a little bit more cautious. And I think there's a lot of opportunity for them to accelerate the growth of their business by doing those things. Women have less access to capital. When you look at the venture fund community, there are not a lot of females. It's very male-dominated. They tend to fund male oriented or male-led businesses, and I don't necessarily think it's a purposeful discrimination against women. It's just kind of, this is the world as we see it, but women often don't reach out for those funds nearly as often as men do. And certainly there is an area of confidence, and we've seen, you know, the book, The Confidence Code, that came out, we've talked about that in our forum groups, and it's women want to do everything perfectly, and so, you know, they're their own worst critics, so they often don't take risks because they think it has to be perfect before they do so. They don't go for the next job opportunity because they think they need 100% of the skill set before they do that. Where men just tend to leap off the bridge. They tend to be bigger risk takers. Perhaps it's the testosterone, I don't know. But that's what I have seen, that theme. And so we talk to women about, you know, calculated risk taking, utilizing other funding. You know, how do you go to a banker? How do you make a pitch for money? How do you get a line of credit? Those are all issues that are things that we deal with in some of our forums, and help women gain the knowledge to do that and accelerate the growth of their businesses. We are often held back by a lack of confidence. You know, one thing I learned in my own career path, and I tell women this, you know, I got into a few situations, you know, I took a promotion or I took a new job. In that first 30 days, I would think, holy moly, what have I gotten myself into? Can I really do this? And what I learned is, if I gave myself 90 to 120 days, I began to get it. I began to gain that confidence. And sometimes people, that fear kind of overtakes them. They get a little scared, so they back off. They don't keep pushing through it. And women have great opportunities to learn as we go. And that's the way most people learn. They learn by doing. They learn by experience. And in my own career, I found that the hardest, most difficult situations that you face are always the ones you learn the most from. And as you then have the advantage of age and looking backwards, you go, wow, you know, that really difficult time, that's the time I learned the most. And I was then able to apply that later on down the road to other things, and those were great lessons that I learned. I think women are afraid of failure. You know, so we talk about, you know, failing up and learning from those mistakes and taking those and picking ourselves up and dusting ourselves off and moving on. And sometimes a failure, a woman will really internalize, and that will kind of stop her in her tracks, and she won't take that next risk. So it's learning from that failure as opposed to letting it stop us. Certainly there have been failures in not achieving certain objectives. There have been failures around probably not quite right fit for a particular job, and you can take that and just kind of let it eat you alive, or you can move on. You know, I came up in the technology and the telecommunications industry. I've sat on both sides of the layoff table. I have laid off people, and I've been laid off. It's incredibly difficult not to take that very personally. And you say it when you're on the table, hey, we're laying off hundreds of people, and this isn't personal, but believe me, people take it personally. I've been on both sides of that table. But those experiences have also, you know, taught me moving forward. I went through a really significant health crisis 6 years ago. And as I recovered from that health crisis, it really made me define the fact that what is it that I really want to be doing? Where do I want to be spending my energy? What matters to me, because I don't know how much time I'm going to have. None of us do. We know that, but until it really comes home to you in a really personal way, that brings clarity really fast. And so I was in you know, my corporate career at the time, and I continued to do that for about 5 more years. But percolating in the back of my mind was, what am I going to do when I retire from my corporate life, and what do I want to do that really gives me meaning and puts me in a place where I'm using my God-given talents to help others. And I really believe that EWF forums give me an opportunity to do that. The workshops that I do give me an opportunity to that. And I get great joy. Probably my greatest joy is seeing a woman get unstuck from a problem that she's working on, or see her grow her business, or be able to connect to people that can really help each other. I get great joy from that, and that's really my motivation for what I do now. Well, I'm going to steal somebody's comment. I did a panel discussion that was a women's leadership event where I had 3 executives on the panel, and one of them was a prominent Dallas CEO, and someone asked her, at the end of this, how do you manage your work-life balance? And she just went, who said I'm managing it? And the whole room just broke into laughter because every woman sitting there could really relate to what she said. And basically her comment was, one day at a time. We are so hard on ourselves. Again, it goes back to this perfection complex we sometimes seem to have, that we have to have a full day at work, we have to have dinner on the table. And I learned, about 2 years after my son was born, I hired a housekeeper. And I went, why the heck didn't I do this years ago? It was the best investment that I had ever made in my own time, in my own peace, my ability to spend more time with my kids. I'm going, I can hire someone to do this. There was another time in my career where I was incredibly busy and I hired someone to help cook for me because it's just not my favorite thing to do. It takes too much time and too much planning, so let somebody else do that. And we all kind of have to find our own balance and our own way, and I do think it's a myth. I mean, we can't have a perfectly balanced day every day. You make choices based on the priorities of that day, and we do the best we can. But I'll also tell a story about my own son that I thought, okay, maybe he's learning a good lesson here. Because like every mom, I would have guilt from time to time about, am I giving enough to him? Am I spending enough time with him? And what is he learning? I hope he doesn't grow up and think all mom does is work. And we were on our way somewhere, and he was about 10, and he was saying, Mom, when I grow up, I'm going to have a yellow Mustang and I'm going to have a Lamborghini. So I went into mom mode and started talking to him about, well then, son, you're really going to need to get those good grades because you're going to have to get into a good college so that you can make a lot of money. And he looked at me just as serious as could be, and he said, well, my wife's going to have a good job. And so I said, okay then. So, you live what you learn, I guess. And so anyway, I thought, well, maybe that's a lesson I want him to learn as well. That he's going to be someone who will encourage wife, daughters, whatever, to choose their own path, whether it be staying home with their kids or having a great job, either one. And so I don't think I did him too much damage, and he's grown up really well and is a fine young man today, making his own way in the world. What keeps me motivated is really the joy of seeing people progress. And I get to live vicariously in some ways through seeing those success stories. So it's very gratifying to see success stories, seeing a woman coming in and addressing an issue with her forum group and getting the kind of feedback that she needs to really gain perspective on how she needs to address that issue, and then coming back a month later or 6 months later and say, hey, I took a lot of that input that you gave me and I made these decisions and this was the great result of it. And that's very, very gratifying to see that. And seeing teams come together in terms of the workshops we do and just become more powerful, better communicators, move their organization forward in a great way, that's very gratifying. And that's what motivates me. I did a retreat with one of the women in my group, and we were gone over a weekend, so on a Sunday morning we had a little devotional. And we led this devotional, and we talked about the parable of the talents. So people who know the New Testament know the parable of the talents. And I've seen so many women that have really God-given abilities, and how we put those to work, whether it be through a nonprofit, whether it be in leading a business. That's gratifying for me to see women put their talents to work. And I've just seen some beautiful success stories and people who've had tremendous challenges in their life. I think about one of our forum members who's just an inspiration to all of us, who had tremendous issues in her childhood, really a problematic upbringing, went through some really difficult things and emerged from that and has created a nonprofit that's helping many, many other women and men with these issues, and she's an absolute inspiration. So you really never know where someone's life can lead and the kind of leadership they can provide. And so seeing them use those talents, that's what keeps me motivated. That's what is gratifying to me. I think that we collectively as women have tremendous opportunity to make a change in our world. I think about the government shutdown and is how it was our congressional women leaders from both sides and both parties who ultimately came together and said, let's cut out this nonsense and let's figure out a way to move forward. Women have this innate collaborative quality that they're able to do that. Not to say that men are not collaborative and don't do that as well, but it does seem to be a skill set that a lot of women possess, and I think that brings a lot of strength to organizations, to nonprofits, to our political environment. And statistically, we now know that if there are 3 or more women serving on a public board, financially that public company does better than if it's all male. And because there is a balance that we bring that is helpful and energizing and meaningful to the companies that we work with. I want my legacy to be that, I made a difference to the organizations that I worked with, that I'm proud of the achievements that not only I made personally, but to the teams that I led and what we were able to do together. There's nothing more wonderful than having someone come to you and say, you made a difference in my career, or you made a difference in what I did in my organization. And so that's personally very meaningful, and I've been fortunate enough to have people come to me, both people I've worked with as coworkers, people who've reported to me, but never underestimate what you can learn from those who work for you as well. And so I've actually had a boss come to me and say, I've really learned a lot from you. And so that's been extremely gratifying, and so that's where I get a lot of my energy and joy. And I'm very much a hard charger. I'm a person that's really focused on the goal, and so I'm that way when I'm dealing with my clients as well. It's, what are you going to want to achieve, and how are we going to get there, and how can we develop a strategy to get you there? And when I see them get there, it's great for me. I get a lot. It's as if I were competing in the race. What's next for me is really further developing. I've had my own company for about 2 years. I lead 2 peer advisory forums here in the Dallas area. I own the Dallas market for EWF International. I have an owners group and I have an executive group, and we're currently looking to add some people to those groups. That and continuing to build the workshop side, the team building, the talent development piece of the business. That's really what's next for me. And that's really the legacy. And I hope over the next year or 2 that I'm looking for that right woman who may want to work with me, that when I really am ready to retire, that I can leave that in someone else's capable hands, that they're ready to take that on for me.